Hey everybody, this is your mentor Colin and his friend purple cabbage, parsnip, golden beet, fennel, and purple daikon radish. Don't forget this nice little image of purple cabbage and your mentor Colin. Today, we're going to be talking about how to make sauerkraut, or Sandor Katz, a famous fermentation expert, likes to call Kraut Chi. It's not a kimchi, it's not exactly a sauerkraut, but there's so many different ways that people have fermented vegetables using a lactobacterial ferment to preserve and enhance vegetables. So today we are going to make sauerkraut out of these vegetables that I have cut up right here. And I'm going to basically show you how we do that. Vegetables have been being fermented with lactic acid for hundreds of thousands of years. It's a very simple idea that when you submerge vegetables in salt underwater, that the types of bacteria or things that would mold, that would grow on them, that would make the vegetables go bad, can't grow in these anaerobic environments. And so the vegetables are actually preserved and can also grow in the sense that they ferment, the lactic acid on the vegetables ferments them and like pre-digests them, so that our guts are able to, one, digest the vegetables more easily, and two, the vegetables can actually live longer than, like, they would go bad if they were in air. And as Sandor Katz says in this book, The Art of Fermentation, in a nutshell, this is how he ferments vegetables. Chop or grate vegetables, lightly salt the vegetables, pack the vegetables into a jar or other vessel, and wait. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to take some of these beautiful vegetables that I have here. I'm going to take a handful of purple cabbage, put it into the bowl, handful of parsnip, handful of golden beets, handful of fennel, and a handful of daikon radish. And I'm going to take my salt here, my sea salt. It's probably better to have more finely ground salt, because the more finely ground salt is able to like mix into the vegetables more. And I'm going to use my hands, and I'm just going to pulverize these vegetables. Yeah, squish them up, yo. These vegetables don't stand a chance against me. Now, you can use so many different types of vegetables for this. Root vegetables work really well. That's kind of like what's traditionally fermented a lot. A lot of people do radishes, and carrots, and a lot of people do cabbage and beets and other things. And but I know that there are some kind of like leafy things that people will ferment, but the root vegetables are really better for it. I'm going to add some more in here. One thing that I like to add into my Kraut cheese, I guess you could call it, are like different seeds. This is fennel seed and this is mustard seed. Sometimes I like to add caraway seeds into my Kraut Chi. Or like I put in sumac, like the plant staghorn sumac is really nice. Some people put like juniper berries in their kraut. You can really be really creative with it. Basically, the idea is that if these vegetables are submerged underwater, they're going to be preserved, and they're not going to grow mold, and they're just going to get kind of crunchier and more zesty as time passes. I like to add the fennels into the kraut the seeds into the kraut, because the seeds, I feel like, actually kind of like open and activate, and their flavor kind of spreads throughout the kraut because seeds like being in water, you know? They really like, yeah, being in the water, and I think it makes them really taste good. I'm not going to add any seeds to this kraut today because I'm kind of experimenting with this fennel that I had, and I want to kind of see how the fennel's going to be. But if you can see this jar right here, this is my old kraut jar. This kraut probably lasted me like almost 2 months. So I've had this kraut maybe for 2 months, maybe even longer. I just filled this whole jar, and it's lasted me basically the whole winter. And I'm gonna add the kraut that I'm making now into this kraut, because some people, like, you know, to get the fermentation activated, they like to keep like the old culture as kind of like a jump starter to get the fermentation going. And so some people can do this with a lot of different things, and their culture, they can have a very old culture going for years even, of like the same kind of like microbes that are fermenting their vegetables. But this is something really important to do for us in a northern climate, because we have to find a way to take like the freshness of summer and bring it with us into winter. We're not really living where there are like bananas growing all the time. You know, so this is our bananas, I guess. Well, I'm finishing up here with these vegetables. I'm getting the last handful of vegetables. And as you can see, if you look at the bowl, the vegetables are starting to get really wet. That's because, like, me putting the salt on them and me squishing them really hard with my hand is causing them to kind of get punctured, and the salt is pulling out the water. Now, some people will say that some people's style is that you add as much salt as you can, and so then when I add it into this jar and I press it down, that the brine or the liquid that comes out of these vegetables will rise above the vegetables. But what I've found is that actually takes a lot of salt and like a lot of pulverizing to do. Like, it takes maybe it's better with just cabbage, but with some of the roots, it's really hard to get that much moisture to come out of the vegetables to make it so that there's the brine that will kind of like rise above them. So what I usually do is I add kind of a little bit of salt like this. And then, now that I think I'm basically done breaking it up, now I can add it in here into the jar. Might take me a second. But it feels really nice to have the vegetables, like, to like crush them like in your hand. It's really like a satisfying job to do, because it's kind of like, yeah, the more that you crush them, the better they're going to taste and the better they're going to ferment, because you're breaking down their cell walls so that the bacteria can eat them and they can get pre-digested for us. But yeah, so like sauerkraut is more of like a German tradition, and I think sauerkraut is more just like cabbage. And then kimchi, people might have tried kimchi, is a Korean, is of Korean descent, and that usually is spicier and sometimes has like fish sauce and other things. But pickles used to be more fermented, but because people in our culture have been kind of scared of people are really antibacterial, that they actually started using vinegar, which is a product of fermentation, but then like pasteurizing like the alcohol the vinegar, so that actually the pickles aren't really like full of life, but they're actually kind of like dead, so that they'll kind of like preserve for longer. Okay, so here is my jar. Now basically the idea here is that I'm gonna use this the top of the fennel here to kind of like push my vegetables down. And now if I had like maybe just cabbage, or I had really salted this really well, then I would be able to push all my vegetables down really hard. And so instead of just like totally pounding it to get the water level to rise, I just added some water here to the brine. And you might be able to see, but I added a green malachite rock in there. And that malachite rock is just holding down the vegetables. And yep, as long as the water level is above the vegetables, you can put a cap on it. And maybe once every day you kind of open it to let the carbon dioxide out, and then you wait, and then it ferments, and you can try some after 3 days and see how you like the taste of it, but you can also let it ferment for longer. It's really up to you. If you want it to ferment more, you can leave it out. If you think that maybe after like a week or something, give or take 3 days, that it's enough, you can put it in your refrigerator and that will slow fermentation. Well, that's fermenting Kraut Chi, and thank you, and I hope you all have delicious salty vegetables. Brought to you by Retribe Forest School.